What's up, guys? In today's video, we are going over the disaster that is the disaster relief program in America, which is FEMA. And I have a ton of personal experience with FEMA, living in the west coast of Florida, the Gold Coast of Florida, the Gulf Coast of Florida, as they say, and been hit now since 2018 with, I think we've had effects from probably half a dozen storms. We've been directly hit with the eye of the storm, twice Category 5s. And then we've also been hit pretty close to the eye in a Category 4, which was Milton just this past year. Luckily, it did hit a little bit more north of us, so it wasn't as bad. If you want to look up some of the hurricane footage, go YouTube Hurricane Ian and Hurricane Irma. Those are the two main ones that drastically affected everything that we had going on down here in Southwest Florida, which is where I reside and where all my businesses are. So what I want to talk about today is, if you guys haven't been keeping up on the news, Elon is starting to go after FEMA now, which needs to be done. And I wanted to pull up a couple of things, and luckily they're back to back on here, so I got them pulled up in direct how I want them so that we can go over both of them. And I want to go over the story of how this works and then what FEMA is actually doing. And I want to start with a story about that. Okay, so during the last hurricane, Hurricane Ian, which was the big one, we were blessed to have another big influencer that you guys might know named Charlie Rocket. If you haven't heard of him, you can look him up on literally any platform, and he's on there. He does a lot of charity work, and I'm lucky enough to be friends with him. And so we had him come down here for a few weeks, almost a month actually, and he was helping out the disaster relief down here, as well as I have some pretty high up friends and some pretty high up places. We were able to, between the two of us, to raise almost $1 million for the local community. So with that, and actually disperse it, right? So we didn't have to deal with red tape. We just dispersed all the money. And one of the stories that I want to tell you about, and you can go on Charlie's Instagram, you can go find the story. It's an older lady, but she lived in a mobile home, okay? And she had her entire home destroyed. She was, I think, over 90 years old or 90 years old. Obviously, completely retired, no way she could work, was living on Social Security, and they offered her $750. Without us coming in with over $10,000, she would have been homeless, she would have been on the street, and she probably would be dead, if we're being honest. And I have dozens and dozens of these stories that you can go check out on Charlie's profile, on my profile on Instagram, from that time period. But that being said, I've seen what FEMA does and how long it takes FEMA to take action. And FEMA, if it even ran right to begin with, if none of this was true, is still one of the most unorganized, slow, worthless organizations inside of our government. And I know, because I've had firsthand experience with them on multiple natural disasters that left billions and billions of dollars in damage. Okay, so this is not hearsay. This is firsthand actual knowledge of what goes on. So if these numbers are true on top of it, they should just shut down the organization. They really should. It should just be gone. They should just have the government have like a fund and send it to the states and send it to the local communities to be able to get the help that they need when the time comes. Because when we had these hurricanes hit, DeSantis did a fantastic job. His response time, his response rate, his ability to get crews in, to get government help in, to get all the construction workers, the electrician, all that was unbelievable. And he should be commended regardless of how you feel about him. I don't agree with everything he says, but he did a fantastic job for the citizens of Florida during those two storms, particularly because I was here during both of them, and so was he. So I want to go into that. But here's the big thing, guys. So let's pull this image up so it's a little bit bigger so you guys can read it. This is the stuff that was articled about how much funding. So if you guys remember North Carolina, right? FEMA said they ran out of money. That was the big story, was FEMA said they ran out of money. They couldn't help the people in North Carolina. And these are some of the things that happened during the Biden administration, okay, that FEMA spent money on. So FEMA announces $380 million in additional funding to communities receiving migrants. FEMA awards $110 million to Emergency Food and Shelter Program to assist migrants. FEMA, more than $77 million in congressional funding for communities receiving migrants. New York City to get $104.6 million from FEMA for asylum seekers, aka migrants. Department of Homeland Security announces distribution of more than $12 million in funding. And then Department of Homeland Security announces $300 million in direct funding to communities receiving migrants and $340 million for a new competitive awards process. So you add all that up, that's over $1 billion. Now, this is where it gets fun, okay? Keep in mind, this is the organization that ran out of money that couldn't help North Carolina. So what I did was I asked Grok. I said, Grok, how much money has FEMA sent to North Carolina? Now, we're going to go through this really quickly because there's a thing in here that you guys aren't seeing that Grok missed too. And it's not every day that I get to be smarter than AI, so I'm going to take my advantage today, okay? But let's go through this. So individual assistance, FEMA has approved over $114 million in individual assistance funds for survivors in Western North Carolina. $114 million. Okay, now, public assistance. More than $292 million was obligated for public assistance grants related to Helene recovery, okay? Expedited public assistance grant funds for debris removal in one of the counties totaled over $38 million, which that's pretty understandable. Now, this is where it gets fun. Listen to the dates here. Keep in mind, this storm did not happen anywhere near this date. By the time this date that I'm about to read came out, it would be winter in North Carolina. For broader disaster recovery, FEMA approved $210 million for North Carolina on November 5th, 2024. Now, magically, guys, if you're not smart, what happens on November 6th, 2024? What happened the very next day? Oh, the election. So you're telling me that FEMA magically 3 months later, 100 days later, got their thumb out of their booty hole and said, we're going to give you guys $210 million the day before the election. And we don't think that that was fraudulent or with the design to buy votes. Now, it didn't matter because they lost because Kamala, you know, when you put a retard up against Trump, Trump typically beats the retard. Okay. Now, that being said, this is undeniable amounts of money. Now, so total, it says roughly $348 million. Now, again, and it gives some obviously conjecture stats after that. But here's the thing. So let's subtract the 210 from 348. What does that give us? $138 million. So roughly $138 million went to North Carolina. And again, now let's go read back. Let's go read this. 380, 110, 77, 104, 12, 300, 340. So we can give our citizens $138 million, but we can give migrants who are here illegally $1 billion that we know about so far. Now, let's scroll down just a little bit to the next article. The city of New York pays $220 million to rent the entire Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan to house illegal migrants. This gets fun. The hotel is owned by the government of Pakistan. And the deal was part of a $1.1 billion IMF bailout package to help Pakistan avoid defaulting on their international debt. So they were going to default on their debt. We gave them the Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan. Now, this is where it gets really, really cool. Obviously, the hotel wasn't doing good because it hadn't been really filled up since COVID. Because remember, what happened during COVID in New York, they locked that fucker down tighter than they give out funds to our citizens in FEMA. Okay? But this is where it gets fun. The lease agreement is expected to generate revenue to the tune of around $220 million for the Pakistan government. A contract was signed for 1,250 rooms. The hotel will be returned to the government of Pakistan once the 3-year lease term expires. If I'm Trump, I'm saying, come get your fucking hotel. It's my hotel now. Fuck you, Pakistan. Now, that's what I would do. I'm not Trump. Trump's meaner than me. Okay? How? This is where it gets fun. So, again, this is where personal experience comes in. So, guys, when there's a natural disaster or anything, and you have people who you open your space to. So, perfect example, when we were going through the hurricane, a lot of churches and a lot of schools become shelters, right? For the displaced, for people who lost their homes, who everything was gone. And again, if you haven't gone and looked up the YouTube footage of Ian and Irma, Fort Myers Beach, go look it up. It will blow your fucking mind. Okay. It was insane. A lot of people lost absolutely everything. And I watched FEMA literally do nothing for them. Okay. That being said, when you have displaced, homeless, migrants, whatever you want to fucking call them, right? People who don't have a home, and you open up a building for them to live in. Do you know how they treat that building? They ruin the building. If you don't believe me, our citizens in Southwest Florida, now again, there's bad people in every group. I'm not saying it was the majority of people. I'm saying what we saw everywhere here during times of displacement. The churches that they opened up were trashed. The schools that they opened up were trashed. So much so that even after they closed them down so that they could reopen schools, it took them an extra week to clean out the filth, the trash, the damage, people destroy things when it's not theirs. I can only imagine what the inside of the Roosevelt Hotel looks like. When you're housing 1,250 rooms worth of people, of illegal migrants there, you're housing them there for free. That hotel is going to cost $220 million to renovate. And I'll bet you FEMA would probably pay for that too if Trump wasn't in office. Here's the problem, guys. Between the city of New York and just those articles that we saw, we're giving away billions and billions of dollars to house people who are here illegally. This is not a bleeding heart thing. This is not a I feel bad for these people thing. This is you came here incorrectly. You broke the law in the way that you entered our country. And now we're paying with our tax dollars for you to live in the Roosevelt Hotel in Manhattan. We're paying for assistance programs. We're paying to give you gift bags that the USAID was giving you. We're paying to give all this, not with money that we make, with our tax dollars. While North Carolina still has problems. We're not even going to go into how much they hate the state of Florida at FEMA. We're not even going to go into that because you can go look that up yourself. Where we had helicopter pilots flying people's shit in, private helicopter pilots that I know were taking trips up into the mountains, giving water, giving food, and these people were literally being told they couldn't do it because FEMA was coming. So there was people starving and dying, and the government said, no, FEMA will handle it, and FEMA wasn't handling it. And we're giving away this kind of money. This organization needs its own disaster relief fund.